This episode is in partnership with Authority Magazine. Authority Magazine, a Medium publication, is devoted to sharing in-depth and interesting interviews featuring people who are authorities in business, pop culture, wellness, social impact, and tech.
Today, we're going to meet someone whose passion is creating things, molding things for a better world.
His name is Jesse Wachter, and from 3D printing to prosthetics, his mission is to give back to the community.
Jesse joins us along with his ideas. Jesse, welcome to Believe in People.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so on May 4th, I know I have to say May the 4th be with you. I can't help it. But anyways, on May 4th, you're opening the first of its kind 3D print shop. It's called actually Print and Play Store. And I always kind of think of opening a store as a kind of building a world. But in this case, like this one hasn't even been seen before. So what kind of world do you want to welcome people into? Like, what's your vision?
A world of wonder and a world of what people didn't know was possible. So I always say anything is possible, but that's kind of the vinyl decals when you walk in. Now that when you see it up on a bulkhead, it just says anything is possible. If anyone comes in and asks, can we do this? As long as it's not a gun, I'll just point to the ceiling. Anything is possible. There are shops out there that are, 3D printing stores. You can go buy 3D printers, you can go buy the materials, the filaments. You've got stores that you can go to for services, like, oh, I want to go get some laser cutting. I want to go get, some things 3D printed. And then you have craft fairs and people that just set up all the little knickknacks and toys and stuff. And they're not brick and mortar. They're going to start popping up in malls, just so everyone knows. It's the next wave of what we're going to see. But I'm doing something in the middle, which in my opinion is the first 3D printed retail store. So my store is not for 3D printing enthusiasts. It's not for people that are looking to buy a printer or have one serviced. It is for the patrons of Starbucks next door to come over and realize that everything they buy in every store, save for guns and save for food, you can have made for you in a store. You can see things that people have been talking about for a decade that's going to change our lives with 3D printing, like orthotics and shoes and prosthetics and airless basketballs and all these things that people keep saying are going to revolutionize home, the capabilities of being able to manufacture things at homes. But ultimately I'd be very shocked if 1 in 30 people embraces the technical challenges of owning a 3D printer in their home. They're only going to get so simple. They're only going to get so easy. There's always going to be clogs and tangles or something like that. Kind of like with a desktop inkjet printer, like for our computers that we have. 1 in 1,000 pages will get jammed and crumpled up. Same thing with 3D printing, maybe even more often. But the store, I want people to learn and embrace what is worth learning and embracing, which is ingenuity and innovation. At the very base level, children and anyone can come in and see something they like and want to paint it to make it theirs. They can see some parts for things, they can put it together and make their own toy, or catapult, anything, launcher, anything that they can do with their imagination. And those things, they just kind of bring it to the back. We'll charge them by weight. But any other thing you walk into, like, you'll see, it'll be all the typical stuff. Like, yes, there's toys, there's plant pots, there's, household things, but then there's also glasses, there's shoes, so we can scan your foot and make a shoe that's perfectly fitted for your actual contours of your foot. There's jewelry, there's all these things that you would look for on a street, which is, as Amy knows, is Lock Street. it's a shopping street. It's a place for salons. It's got schools. It's got restaurants. It's got lots of kind of, I wouldn't say it's a touristy street, but it's a street that of any street in Hamilton, Ontario, if tourists come to for a day to go shopping and restaurants, that's where they're going to go. And generally, if you look for a 3D printing anything store, it's going to be a store that sells 3D printers. It's going to be an industrial area in a warehouse. It's not something you can walk into. The mass scale version of 3D printing is what we call 3D print farms. Just stacks and stacks of 3D printers, hundreds or thousands. No one can go to those. They're appointment only. If you come to them with business, they'll say, well, maybe come on Wednesday at 4 p.m. and we'll take you on a tour. My store is somewhere that is a neighborhood consumer facing store. So there is a print farm there. People can come in and see 3D printing often for the first time, and I'm not even open yet. Um, but it's also something kind of akin to an old toy store where, if you wanted to get a train or something for your kid or a gift for somebody, you'd ask them to make it. They'd paint it in the colors that you want. This is kind of a revolution in being able to do that for anybody, for anything. Like, yes, if someone comes in and says, I want a toy truck for my kid, they're really into the color red and purple. Can we make a red truck with purple wheels? No question. But the same thing if an adult comes in and says, I know an author that came in and wants copies of her books turned into 3D models to demonstrate at a book launch. We can do that.
Mm.
You can turn
That was
anything
my
into a
ask,
3D
just so you
print.
know.
Yeah, I kind of gathered that. You know,
Yeah,
I'm not saying you lost me at the crumpled paper in the printer part of the
right.
conversation, but in many ways, you kind of did because that's the extent of
Sorry.
my savvy when it comes to that sort of thing. And of course, it takes me, a half an hour to find out where the crumpled paper is. This,
Right.
what you're talking about, just brings this. This is very a personable level, a friendly, hi, how you doing? Come on in. You're not driving to the outskirts of town like you said. You're actually coming into a place where you feel comfortable. Um,
Yeah.
and in terms of that feeling comfortable, it also sounds to me that there's a bit of humanity in what you're talking about. If you can assist people with orthotics, which I know many people require, and they're very expensive and they're often painful, um, prosthetics. So
Yeah.
there's a whole revolution taking place for those of us who need a little bit of help.
Yep. Like I said, anyone that needs a hand, come talk to us. But we're joining an organization called Enable. It's a nonprofit. It's global, and it's just one of the programs we're getting involved in. But as an example, they provide models, basically the model files for us to be able to put together a series of different, very well tested and very well engineered prosthetic, mostly upper body prosthetic, uh, parts. So for, whether it's a below wrist amputation or below elbow or above elbow, we have, I'll refer to it as I refer to any other thing in our catalog. We have the files for it. Um, and through this organization, as an example, hospitals, universities around the world can simply put up kind of a call to answer. We've got somebody here that's a kid. Here's their measurements and dimensions, and the different chapters around the world can kind of claim it and send something in. There are hundreds of Enable chapters around the world for just this prosthetics program. Not one of them is a store. Every single one of them is, an engineering department at a university or a guy in his basement that's got a few printers that aren't doing a whole lot of stuff. Um, Having a store offers an opportunity to be able to spread the word that yes, the things like this, things like prosthetics aren't something that need to have some kind of an odd stigma around them. You shouldn't look at somebody that has a prosthetic hand and kind of try to avoid it and not embarrass them. What if you looked at somebody that has a prosthetic hand and said like, "Oh my God, is that? Can I look at that for a second? That's cool." In the same way, like I've got a flip phone, and sometimes people come to me and say, "Is that a flip phone?" Yeah, it's different than the iPhone or whatever. Come take a look. Um, you know,
think
basically, if
it takes
sorry,
it takes the stigma out of it. It
it
takes
takes some stigma out of
takes
it
the
and it spreads the
anxiety out of
word. Yes, I don't want the odd person to walk in and say, "Oh, hospital, medical stuff, prosthetics, I'm uncomfortable." The first thing I want someone to do to come into the store is to recognize that, uh, frankly, a technology that we're using to make frivolous knickknacks and 3D printed dragons and clickers and fidget toys, those same things can be used to change people's lives for the better.
it. Oh, yeah.
And we work with a filament provider out of Nova Scotia that, like, they make different colors, but one of the most important things to them is that they have 5 different skin colors. So, you know, my partner is a person of color, my daughter is a person of color. I've spent most of my life in other countries where people are not predominantly white. I I think it's important that everyone can be represented, and I think everyone can be expressive. So if a child comes in, or if we hear of a child somewhere that they've got the same skin color as me, we can make a prosthetic for them. But if they want to mix it up and do some neon green or pink or whatever, to be fair, if they want to come in and work in some like LED lights or something, we will do that because, like I'll point out, anything is possible. But no one will ever pay for a prosthetic at Print and Play. You know,
That's
not
great.
other than time, it doesn't take very much. The materials don't cost a lot. Um, and if we're going to be spending time putting together earrings and stuff like that, we can put together prosthetics too. We can put together things for people in need. And that includes our whole program, which is called Play It Forward. Um, Charities, organizations, anyone that needs stuff, we are a community store that's open to provide things to people that need them. So, we're not a legal charity,
No,
but
but
if charities come
you're
to us,
you're bridging you're creating that community for people to be able to collaborate. And one thing, Jesse, so this is a couple of things. One that I find really interesting, and Kevin, this is funny. So Jesse had his store, and it had paper around it, but it was a light paper around the store, around the glass, and then or the windows, and then you could just see little lights, and you could just see little messages like artists, musicians, creatives, and it's like I was very inspired. And then if there was a little crack through the window, with the paper, I'd look through it and go, "What is this?" And then one day, I tried the door and it was closed, and I tried again, it was closed. And so one day the door opened because Jesse was working in there and trying and filling the store with all the magic. And it was like a Disney moment. Like it was like Walt Disney, whereby it's kind of like, as kids, go play outside, and we made tree forts and we needed to use our own imagination. And what this does for modern day kids is it gets you out and thinking about when Jesse says it's unlimited, you look at something, you think it really is unlimited, but you visually see what is possible, like ball caps and mesh things. And I see artists coming in and saying, "Jesse, I want to create something. I have this in my mind. Can you put this visually to what I'm inspiring to do?" And so that's what's so magical about it is this. Now, Jesse, question, what started this for you? Like, how did you come about wanting to even do this in the first place?
like all things in my adult life, curling. No,
Curling.
Yeah,
well,
Jesse's into
oh,
curling, everyone, readers and
I
Bravo.
listeners.
just I just work in curling, and it's a good community, and it's good people, and I'll never stop giving back to the community as long as I have the opportunity to do so. That's whole other side stories that are irrelevant to this, but a couple of years ago, in the curling events that I work in, which I am just kind of a catch-all technology person. Hey, Jesse, we saw this on TikTok. Cool neon signs. Can we make that for curling? Sure. So it was actually kind of when my partner was about to give birth to our now 2-year-old daughter. Um, I kind of embarked on this little side mission, this side quest to create neon lights for curling, and went over great for our last event of the year. Baby got born during that event. It's like very interesting event for me, but it was also around the corner from where we lived, so it was all manageable. The aftermath of that event, for which I created these LED neon strip curling signs, was a demand for neon curling rocks. Mostly clubs in the States because of all of the new young hip demographics that are filling up the memberships of US curling clubs. Um, all of a sudden I'm selling all these neon LED curling rocks, and I'm cutting uh, plexiglass, and I'm cutting myself, and I'm trying to get these things laser cut, and I realize I can be 3D printing the channels and the parts to just kind of slide the lights into. And after some reviews, and mind you, I am a technologist to my core. I'm the biggest nerd on the planet. But I avoided 3D printing for about 10 years. It just seemed like something that I don't need to be part of the revolution of figuring out how to make things 3D print properly. There's a big community that's going to do it. I'll come on board when this thing is a bit more prosumer, as I call it, closer to consumer, when I can just kind of take a printer out of a box, set it and forget it, make it do what I want it to do without having to, you know, finesse it too much or modify it. And to be fair, a company came out that was their MO. Let's build printers that are easier for consumers. Let's bridge all these gaps between people that have to solder things and put things together just to 3D print, and people that just go to the Apple store and buy a MacBook and it works. So that company came out. I got a printer. Uh, 2 years later, I've got 30 of them, and I still make lights for people, but that that has led to another thing and another thing, and merchandising for companies, and then wanting to do toys for children because it would just make me happier than soldering lights for people. And that kind of brought me to the point where I realized there's all these pieces floating around, you know, in the overall ether of the internet and reality. There's model designers that are creating brilliant things, brilliant things for your homes, brilliant things for children, brilliant toys, brilliant tools, things that I could never design in 100 years. And the nature of licensing these models online, or if I was a model designer, I can't expect to have my catalog available for $100. The going rate globally for a designer catalog is $10 to $20 a month. So there are millions of designers out there that are making their life's work available for the equivalent of $10 to $20 a month. I have printers. Nobody's putting this together in a community fashion where, other than, say, I guess, craft fairs and uh, farmers markets and stuff like that, which it's always going to be the low hanging fruit where people have a new trend with the crickets or whatever. But I just think that there's a huge opportunity to bridge everything together for people in a community, so that people can see that there is so much possible with what people can do, and it's not just toys. I make instruments like violins and ukuleles. So when people like Amy or her husband come in, who is a musician, can just start, grab an instrument off the wall and play it, and it sounds as good, if not better, than a normal instrument. That begs the question, why are normal stores still existing? To an extent. Yes, there's craftsmanship and everything else that some stores really represent, but when it's a retail store that just has to buy up inventory and sit on inventory and hope that they can sell off that inventory. Um, the store I'm trying to invent here is something different where there's never an abundance of inventory. And it's not just about, the price on my end. This is an ethical decision and reason to do so. It's better for the environment. Not only is this stuff made with plant-based bioplastic and in store, we're not sitting on a warehouse full of stuff. We didn't have to ship things overseas just to get to the hands of somebody on the street. Um, we were able to produce it for you. You can come in and we can make something the same day, if not for tomorrow. Kind of to a point like Amy said there, people come in and more often than not, they're leaving saying like, man, I got to think about this now. Like what can I do? And I think that that's another piece of a puzzle that we've lost. A kind of a community engagement, and especially post COVID and everything like that. Like I was in PEI, Little Island province for most of COVID. And even coming back, I realized, wow, I've been out of the public now for a couple years. I feel like I haven't experienced any kind of community. And, if I have an urge or a hunger to be able to dig into and be a part of community, I also see other people wanting that. So, yes, you can go to another retail store where you can buy the same things that you buy everywhere else. They all buy from the same places. Um, or you can go somewhere that is about this place and it is about that community and it is about these people. Because at the end of the day, print and play is always going to have certain things available, but it's going to be the community that defines what it is that we do. It's going to be the community that defines what we have available for them. If no one wants to come in and buy 3D printed dragon toys, we're not going to make them. We're not going to sell them. We're not going to keep them, excuse me, but shoved up our asses. We're going to have what people want and what people need. And to me that just trumps everything. That transcends every other kind of intention for what I want to do with 3D printing or even my media background. This pulls everything together, and to be able to have a platform that can also not only educate and inform people, enable people, encourage people to be innovative. Um, because honestly, I don't see it. I see it happening for children. I don't see enough of it happening for adults. I don't see enough of it happening for children. There's too much reliance on, here's the thing, it's already built. Maybe you'll get it for Christmas or your birthday.
Yeah.
What
I
about the
have to,
mentality of coming and making it yourself, right? Like, we make speakers, like we make things out of recycled, thrown out electronics and turn them into things that people will think are so cool. So I think people just didn't realize that these things are possible. And I know that that's a little bit far off from how I got into it, but it's a little bit more why I got into it. I was making lights and people didn't realize you can make your own lights. It's one of the easiest things. And yeah, we're going to have a lamp camp and people can learn to make their own lights. But so far, like I'm not open yet, but just a few people that have come in, take a look, and then walk out with that same expression, which is, I gotta think. Like that for me, that's a home run. Like I don't know many other places where people have walk out and say like, I gotta start thinking. They walk out focused on what they have in their hand, and they're like, cool, I can't wait to put this in my ears or whatever it is. I want people to think. I don't like what I don't like about the world is that people don't think and they don't think about each other and they don't think about where they get their stuff from. So at the end of the day, if I can do something to do that, because I have a 2-year-old daughter and I want her to grow up in the best world possible with the best people possible. So that's at its core why I'm doing what I'm doing.
huh. Well, of course, I was going to say you can avoid tariffs if if you make it yourself. Um,
Yes.
but my real takeaway from our conversation today is that you are really a guy who loves what he does.
I'm
Oh,
learning to.
and that's often very rare in our world to find someone who's so passionate about what they do.
I think so. I think that as a society, we've been a little too conditioned to,
Take what's
I
given.
guess, yes, and just roll with it or deal with it, heads down, deal with the grind. And I'm not saying that you can't find enjoyment in something that's manual or, you know, we all find something that we end up into. And for me, like case in point, I fell backwards into a world of curling and curling media. And that's honestly been a big part of my world for about a decade, 12 years, something like that. And I've been fortunate to have that community, but um I think that, you know, yes, I'm assuming that not everyone can get so passionate or into what they do. Not everyone has the opportunity to be able to do something. Mind you, I could go bankrupt in 2 months here and and I won't be as optimistic about it, but
Your community is around you, Jesse. We're here to back you.
I
We're,
think
we're here to
so.
support you. And it's funny, we're coming to the end of our podcast and I can't wait for the opening of your store. I am so fortunate that I'm like down the street. But I wanted to ask you, this
And
is
that
about,
you're nosy.
yeah, of course, and curious.
Yeah,
Very
and
But
that's
I
good.
want to ask Jesse, this is called Believe in People, but I want to ask you, why do you believe in play?
I think I'll preface it with a quick thing, which was should I have called the store Print and Play because I don't want it to be just for kids and I don't want people to associate that play has to be just for children. But my goodness,
What do you mean as you look at the
if
Superman models behind me?
true,
All my little toys.
it's
Sorry, go
that's a
ahead.
great example though. No, that's exactly it at its core because it doesn't matter how old we get or who we are or if we become wealthy or poor or comfortable or uncomfortable. Like everyone can afford to get a smile put on their face at some point. Everyone can afford to feel a sense of wonder, a sense of awe. And if we're not building things that can provide that to anyone and everyone, I I don't know why we're doing it. I understand that most things out there are just financially motivated and stuff, and we all have to make money, but we have to enjoy life. Like one of my colleagues the other night was just saying, like, there's so much more to work. And there is. And that being said, like, you can enjoy work and you don't have to enjoy work, but what do you do when you're enjoying work? You're gonna whistle. You're gonna have a little hop to your step or something like that because it becomes a little bit more like play. And
It's creative.
don't tell me that only kids play. We all play. We
Exactly.
play instruments, right? So from a semantic point of view, I'll say just semantically, if you can play it, it's what we do.
That's great.
I want everyone to feel not restricted by their age or their gender or their race or anything like that. That's what I mean. Like print and play is for everybody, except for jerks. Like if someone comes in and they're gonna have something to say about what we embrace, they can just get out. Um, but I want all people just to feel good and to feel kind of wowed. And and I hope that the first time that someone like Amy comes in and says, "Wow, I didn't realize that this is a thing." Like Amy, I hope you come in for your 30th time and see something that still blows you away. Like that's what we're trying to do. So in an
Thanks,
ever-changing
Jesse.
world and
I will.
environment, yeah, I want you to always feel like there's something to come in and play, a game to check out, an instrument to mess around with, a new kind of ball to bounce around. Like adults we have to loosen up a little bit and have a little bit of fun sometimes too. And not only that, but some kids, like there are just people like that, and maybe they'll come in and they'll be a little serious, but if we can put a smile on their face, like that's mission accomplished.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jesse.
Thank you for such an inspiring half an hour of discussion. I'm
Thank you for
inspired
having me on.
and I'm curious. Thank you.
I hope you are. And
Well, I just said that it was inspiring, but I mean, it really is inspiring to meet someone, whose ideas and positive energy are bouncing around the room like a super ball, which he could probably make for
You
us.
make that. That's hilarious. And you know what I like? I like that he inspires others. So he talks about being a sort of a tech nerd. And I love that because he then helps others to use their imagination and create things. So he's not telling you what to make. He's just giving you the opportunity to be able to make what you want. And that's what's so very cool about what he's doing. And I love his enthusiasm.
A glow in the dark super ball. That's what I want.
Okay, a glow in the dark super ball.
Yep.
Super ball. All right. Well, if you've enjoyed this episode and want a super I was going to say
A glow in the dark super
a glow
ball?
in the dark super ball. We will be giving them out if you subscribe to Believe in People. No, Believe in People because we believe in you. Thanks, everyone.
Right.